Welcome to our third episode here of BizzTalk, where we talk about the changing events industry and just different aspects of it. And I'm your host, Jason Schuster, and we're really excited today to have Anna Maj, who is a global fintech leader. She's been brings to the table over 20 years of experience with some of the biggest organizations in the world. She's been featured in the top 10 women in fintech for Fintech magazine. She's been constantly rated one of the top 100 women in fintech, women's power list, top 25 women leaders in financial technology. The list just goes on. Anna, you're a superstar. So when it comes to fintech, it's really exciting to have you. Not to mention you've written several books that are on not soft topics, very, very advanced topics, and I just love it. I love getting a chance to speak with you. It's good to see you again. Anna, I would love it if just getting started here, if you would take maybe a minute or two to tell the audience just a little bit more about your background and kind of maybe what you're working on right now. I know you're involved in several things, but maybe some of the things you're most excited about right now, and then we'll kind of move into to our general discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and hello, Jason. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. So that's my pleasure. And yeah, it's probably difficult to make the long story short, but I expected that you would do that. But anyways, so you mentioned a lot of my roles, but what I'm currently doing, definitely, I'm just shifting towards knowledge sharing. So I turned my focus on sharing knowledge because, as you said, I have 20 years of experience in payments and banking innovations. So I combined a strategic approach, but I also have a very practical background, hands-on experience, and what I can bring to the table, and also in terms of giving back to the fintech community, is that I can share my knowledge now. So by sharing knowledge, I mean different, of course. We can just mention different ways of sharing knowledge, including mentoring and advising. It can be done online nowadays, of course, but also lecturing and educating people and speaking at different events, and not only events, of course. This includes public speaking and also running some workshops or presentations also for corporate clients. So in terms of my recent developments, I would say, and my recent activities and sharing knowledge, so definitely I have some evidence for that. So yeah, and very fresh one, just only launched a week ago. It's a conversational AI in banking online course. So this is from chatbots to virtual assistants, and definitely I curated the course and I lectured the course. This is available online, and it's being produced together, so in partnership with CFTE, that stands for Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship. And definitely it's a very much focused course on the conversation AI. We talk a lot about the AI in finance, but this is like a specific application of conversation AI. So when we talk about voice bots and chatbots, either text-based or voice-based bots and virtual agents. So this is very much focused, but it doesn't mean it's very specialized and very hermetic. This is open for a global audience, and of course, just professionals in finance, not only in finance, even just top executives that want really to have like an overview what's going on in the conversation AI, because this is a kind of a must-have strategy right now, and for everybody in banking and in financial services. So I talk about the technologies underlying the conversation AI, like machine learning, deep learning, natural language understanding. So sometimes they are really just mixed, or just very, very, very briefly, but also in a very transparent and very friendly way. I talk about these technologies, but the most important thing is I talk about the applications of these technologies. So what stands behind conversation AI, we have a lot of different use cases provided, and even some case studies, because I work with contributing experts. So we have like experts from the leading institutions around the world, from HSBC, from Active.ai, just a conversation AI startup, which is very active, as the name says. in Asia, in Pacific Asia, in Singapore. They work closely with DBS, they work closely with Standard Chartered, so the leading banks in the region. And so I can really just provide a lot of examples. We also have Bizz.ai that really just cover the Nordics and the Nordic region. So the banks there like DNB. So there's a lot of hands-on practical insights and approaches and just delivered by industry leaders and professionals and specialists. So this is not a theory, this is really about the practice. So, and also just, this is about the future of AI, the conversational AI, if we can say, about the voice economy. So this is one of them, of my recent achievements, and I'm really proud of this child because this is a very hot, red hot topic nowadays. And sometimes there are some confusing, stories about it. And I really just discovered some of the most attractive use cases, but also just demystify some of the conversational AI terms and definitions and also technologies. We also talk very practically about implementations. So what is needed for an organization to implement chatbots and virtual assistants in terms of people resources, in terms of technologies and platforms that can be selected. This is a very kind of like a playbook for people that want to implement it. And the second course, I just don't want to talk about it so long, but definitely there is a second course that was launched earlier. So at the beginning of August, this is again about a very hot topic about open banking and platforms in finance. And I'm covering this is entire specialization. And this is the first in the world specialization on the open banking. And I cover the course and the new entrants. So I talk about the business models and the implementations that are done by new entrants, meaning fintech startups, but not only fintech, also tech startups, big tech players, and other stakeholders in this game, including merchants, retailers, some other companies. So yeah, so as you see, I'm pretty busy, and of course I'm also talking. I'm also speaking quite often at some other events. So, but I'm busy with this education and online executive education.
I love that, and you're not passionate about this, are you?
No, not at all.
I love it. You can hear your passion so clearly as you describe this. I love it. And you know, I want to come back to events as well, but you bring up a huge point. You know, 2020 has been such a strange year, but in my opinion, it has created this huge opportunity for knowledge sharing. And I mean, just, I know so many people that have decided, you know what, I'm going to go back to school online because I can. In fact, I'm even one of those people. I said, you know what, I'm going to take my financial education a little bit more, and I'm able to do my my master's in finance online, and I'm learning things that I was like, I didn't think that I would really have the opportunity to do, but 2020 has kind of made that possible. So, I mean, how has your experience been this year with just that? I mean, you've even pivoted yourself, but you want to talk about that for just maybe a couple minutes?
Yeah, sure. So just you touched upon a very, very important point here. So, but I would say this is just the only education that people can learn and discover new things. This is about reskilling and upskilling, because nowadays we even need more of, just while the job market is really changing in front of our eyes, not only in terms of the jobs itself or themselves, but also just the way we execute it. And of course, we all see the digital world, and what we do, of course, we work in a digital way remotely, we shop in a digital way, we do almost everything in a digital way nowadays because of the COVID-19 situation, but it will stay with us even longer, of course, not the COVID-19, fortunately, but the post-COVID-19 effect in terms of shifting towards digital. So what I'm trying to say, of course, we work digitally, we shop digitally, we can also learn and teach digitally. So we do a lot of activities. And I think it's very much of importance because, first of all, people are sitting at homes in front of the computers. They have probably more time, but also they realize they have more need for reskilling or upskilling or learning new things, because this is the requirement of the current job market and also of the current situation, especially when you are in a very technology intensive sector, when everything is changing very quickly. But having said that, there are some traps, I would say, here, because of course there is a lot, because there is a lot of content available free of charge, and this is great. But this is very inclusive, this is very democratic, and I think there are so many resources that are really high quality resources that can be used, and that's great for people to have access to knowledge, to have access to education. But we should also care about quality. Because nowadays, of course, you have the demand. So people are really willing to spend their times in front of the computers to a certain extent, of course. And on the supply side, you have a lot of producers, you have a lot of designers and creators of the content, including the education content. So needless to say, edutech and education industry is really blooming, especially in the digital set. This is the moment. But the thing is that you should really care about the high quality content. And this is because this is not about the quantity. We have a lot of suppliers, and I'm not saying that the paid content is better than the non-paid. Of course, very much depends. But you should care about the quality, and you should be also quite selective in terms of what you choose. So there are some challenges here as well.
Absolutely. Well, and you know, as someone who my entire adult life, I've been kind of an early adopter of online learning, and which is for me has been great. I know that some of my peers really they just, I don't know, they struggle to just kind of wrap their head around it. But I have found that free education is, I don't apply myself as much. When I pay for the course, I try hard. I try to learn, right? Because I paid for this. I want to get something out of it. It seems like for me, my experience has been sometimes when we go towards free resources, we tend to be a little more casual about it. So I agree that it's great, it's democratic, but it can be a trap for some people.
Yeah,
you have to have a lot of discipline.
You have to be very self-disciplined when you use the free of charge content. And definitely this is about your motivation. And sometimes people perceive if it's something free of charge that it's not a good quality, or I'm not motivated enough to use it, so I'm not self-disciplined. But of course, if I pay for something, so then I have to use it, of course, to the whole extent because I paid it. And yeah, this is a psychological thing that we can't really just ignore here, or we can't avoid also this effect. But definitely, this is about the quality and of the content, which is really all around the globe, and you can use whatever you want. But I think this is good because for some people, this is the access to new way of skilling and upskilling and educating, also including the digital fitness or digital skills, because even ourselves, if you use different platforms, now we are on Zoom, and Zoom is like one of the best known, so I can use this brand, of course, name. But then there are like different, tens of different platforms, probably hundreds. But just recently, I used a lot of platforms for speaking, for educating, teaching people. And of course, they are quite similar, but they are different in terms of the interface, in terms of the navigation. So you have to get used to it. You have to know how to navigate it. So this is in terms of digital fitness. So we use this term. And also digital inclusion, because it's, so if you can use the platform, of course, you can learn quickly, but then you should have the access to digital words as well and to educate. And this is also just the opening up the perspective towards different areas and different paths that you can follow.
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears just slightly, because I could talk about this subject and specifically as it pertains to the financial industry, I could probably keep you here for hours. We don't have hours, so maybe another time.
Yeah.
But how is this translating into events? I mean, obviously, traditionally, business events maybe weren't so much about education so much as they were about networking or showing off a new product. But do you see that changing now? I mean, this new normal where we events kind of have to be more digital, and how do you keep the audience entertained or engaged? Is it education based? Is it more content based? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a very good question, because we are in the process, of course, and this is like a live organism, so it's changing in front of our eyes. But what I witnessed so far is definitely, it's again about the quality, because now you have a lot of events, so everybody's producing the events, so the supply side is really just growing or blooming again. And mostly now digitally, there are like free of charge, there are free events. So this is the changing perspective. But of course, this is very much really comes down to the quality of the events again. And I'm not saying again that it's free, it's not a good quality. In many cases, sure, there are great speakers, because we have like a more flexibility in attracting people, because people are more available. They are sitting at their offices or their homes, and they don't have to travel. So you can really just pack the event with a lot of speakers, with a lot of speeches and presentation. But this is again not about the quantity. So I think also that the format of the event is changing a bit, because how long you can sit in front of the computer listening to the people, and especially in the situation that either you see the hat, or at least, I mean, maximum the full, not the full, but the half of the body, or right, you can only see the head, or you can see the face. So it's quite boring. You don't see the interaction. You don't see the full body language. For some people, it's really something, the part of the entire speaking story for me, for example, because right, I'm quite vivid and I'm quite like, just dynamic on stage. So it's quite limiting. But of course, if you see the like talking heads, and sometimes in case of the speech or the presentation, when you have the slides on the screen, so you can only hear the voice. So it's about the content. It must be about the attractive content, something catchy. And also something, I would even say something really catchy in your voice or the way you present. So it's really changing. Of course, so there's the same rules for the physical presentation. When you're on stage, some people attract the audience, some not necessarily. But in the digital new normal or new world, it's even more evident and visible. So you have to find a way to attract people. And of course, the format itself is shorter, because I can't imagine that people are sitting in front of the computers and they're listening to the 40 minutes presentation. It's usually shorter. And the panels, so this is like a quick, so even you can pack a lot of events, but they are shorter one by one. So so this is the changing thing. And so again, quality and the new way of attracting, and in terms of, for example, partners and stakeholders in this event industry. So you just really miss this networking part. Of course, there are different roundtables. There are even networking parties being done digitally, so people can interact with each other. But it's very difficult to achieve. Of course, we know how it works, like feel and touch, and people talk, and they can have a glass of wine, and they can talk after the event in the afternoon or evening session. And definitely this is a missing part. So I miss that personally a lot. So I miss traveling, and I miss meeting people and talking to them and have this feedback, like, just face to face, not digitally. But that's better than nothing. So I really enjoy just meeting new people and having my audience digitally. But I think this is very much down to the platform. We can't replace it, or we can't mimic that in 100% the physical world, but definitely we can be close to that. So very much important is the matchmaking and networking opportunity for people, and also partners, because in many industries we don't have any other chance to promote our solutions, to promote our products and services than the digital one. So it's also changing the entire industry in terms of sponsoring and promoting the events. And I don't want to go behind the scenes, because I'm rather in the front end as a speaker. Right. But definitely this is also changing.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of being a speaker, which you mentioned earlier that, when you're able to maybe do more speaking engagements, I'm sure that Last year, this time, I probably wouldn't have been able to get you on a show like this because you'd be traveling, right? So
That's true.
I love it. I love this. I love this kind of opportunity. But I mean, as a speaker, how much has that really changed for you? I mean, I know that you get asked to speak at a lot of events. Now you probably get asked to speak maybe even at more events. But what about, I mean, as a speaker, speaking to other speakers, how can they manage being a speaker going forward? I mean, that's, for some people, that's their livelihood, right? They're a paid speaker. They get paid to come to these events, and that's probably changing as well. What is your advice to someone who's in that same position?
Yeah, so you mentioned this traveling component. Now it's excluded because I used to travel a lot. So at least half of my time into different locations, different geographies. But of course, I had to spend at least one day on site or even 2 days. So now it's much more efficient in a way. So of course, I can be even, just at the same day, I can be in India, I can be in London, I can be in the US. So just basically, of course, the time zone, especially because of the different time zone. So I can be in one day, just in many different locations. But of course, it's not about the quantity. So I would say there are like two things involved. First of all, of course, we have to be very selective because we all, speakers, but also the audience, we really face this so-called Zoom fatigue. That we are really just really tired of sitting in front of the computers, listening to other people's, and everything is digital. So it's really tiring, it's really annoying, and I also experienced that. So we should care about that. So I'm not doing such a crazy things like, just talking. Today I had some video calls, but project related, and this is my only speaking engagement. And usually it's not more than one a day because you have to prepare. And in terms of preparing, what happens and what's changing the speaking industry is some people really want to go live. Of course, there are some preparation calls or some introductory calls, but they want to go live and to make panels and discussions really spontaneous and natural. And I really love it. But in terms of, in case of some organizers, they want to pre-record it or to rehearse it. Because of course, it didn't happen to me, never, for the physical event. And then of course with technology involved, so there's if something goes wrong, if somebody can connect, so all this stuff involved. So definitely you have to rehearse, you have to prepare, you have to connect like half an hour earlier. So I'm saying it's much more time efficient, but in many cases, it's not that time efficient because you have to spend more, you have to devote more time and spend longer for preparation. And what I really don't like, to be honest, is a pre-recorded session, because this is, people know that it's pre-recorded and then it will be just published. So definitely it's like you lack the contact with the audience. There's no like Q&A live session unless you join for the Q&A session only. And everybody involved knows that it's pre-recorded. So we are like, you really miss this, just digitally you miss this component, just audience component, mostly speaking. But for pre-recorded, it's even worse. So this is something that changed, but hopefully it doesn't happen that often. But sometimes, I'm somewhere else, and there is a pre-recorded session already just being broadcasted. So I can be definitely, even at the same time, I can be in different places. But in terms of my advice, this is very much, this very much depends on the situation of the speaker and the organizers and the conference event, just different criteria or different factors involved. Because as said, there are a lot of free events. And of course, in the digital, when people assume that you don't have to prepare, you don't have to travel, you don't have to spend that much time in terms of traveling, but you still have to prepare for your speech, for your presentation, for your panel. So they really assume that it should be also free. But it very much depends, and it depends on your probably profile. If you are like well-recognized speaker and you can really attract your audience and you can just use your network and all this stuff. So definitely, just to make it short, not to make it any longer, very much depends, because I used to speak a lot, but now I probably have like 30% more of the requests or inquiries than I used to have. So it's increasing, but I'm much more selective, definitely. And of course, again, I wouldn't like to disclose any of the commercial secrets and anything from behind the scenes, but definitely it's not only free. And I have some criteria when it's free, so they are very like very precise and very precisely set. If it's about promoting startups, if it's about any for example, non-profit startups, social entrepreneurs, and some other criteria that are involved, they are mine. So definitely I'm willing to help out and to support and share my knowledge.
Absolutely. Well, falling in that category, I'm just really glad that you decided to come on here with us.
It's my pleasure to share my knowledge about sharing knowledge.
Yes. Well, and actually, you kind of bring up a point. A couple weeks ago, we talked with Dave Crane, who's also a speaker. He does a lot of the same things, different focuses though, and he was kind of saying along the same lines that speakers now might need to pivot more towards sharing knowledge rather than just speaking. So I think you're this new doing courses and sharing knowledge. That's really the right direction to go as a speaker, right? I mean, I mean, commercially, we're talking about like from a career perspective, right? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, if you are a speaker, but of course, I just my way to speaking I would say it's I haven't been a speaker for most of my time. Of course, it was like an integral part, or it was embedded in my professional career. So definitely I was working for several corporations and some other companies, and I was speaking also because I like it, and and I was sharing the knowledge. So definitely about the practical experience. So then, just this is about the proportions, because now I'm just shifting into this field, and definitely I'm doing that more than I used to. So this is about the proportions and the balance, I would say. But it's not like my full-time job being a speaker, because I'm also advisor and I'm involved in some of the consultancy projects and so on. So definitely it's I would say I'm like a fintech advisor, professional, executive, and all this stuff. And then I'm also speaking, which really bring a lot of value for corporate clients. I think they really appreciate that I'm not a speaker and I'm writing books and speaking at different events, but I have like 20 years of very solid background and experience, and I can share this with the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, your experience is just amazing. So we're basically out of time, and again, I don't want to keep you too long, but last question, this is really more for those watching. If someone wanted to go to take advantage of these courses that you've put together, and in particular knowledge, where would be the best place for them to go and get started with those? Because I'd love to direct people to these courses and myself.
Sure. Thank you for that, Jason. Much appreciated. So there are two ways. Of course, that people can follow me on LinkedIn, and I publish all the posts related to the courses there. There are also some video clips and sneak peek about the courses. So this is the good way to connect and follow the links there. But also Central for Finance and Finance Technology and Entrepreneurship, so CFT website, that there is a plenty of courses, not only mine. So definitely other courses are also showcased there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Anna. Would love to have you back again here in the near future, and maybe instead of events, we can just talk about fintech together for 30 minutes or something.
Yeah, sure. This is an unusual talk, because usually I speak about fintech, and this is what I really love. But this is something new for me, so I think it's also quite refreshing. So thank you, Jason, for your invitation, and thank you for having me. It was my pleasure, as I said before, once again. Thank you.
Mine too. Always good to see you, Anna. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you later.
I'm having a wonderful day. Probably you can see some sunshine in the.
I can see
in the background. So the sun came up, and that's great. So I will enjoy the rest of the day, and you too, Jason. This is the